Last September I traveled to China, and it was a trip that I always wanted to do. Since I was a kid, I was obsessed with the culture, obsessed with the food, and it was on top of my bucket list of things to accomplish. And I traveled alone. I went through a travel group, and I was the only American that was a part of the trip. And it was insane. We backpacked throughout the country, started in Hong Kong. I was in a sleeper train for 24 hours. We partied, we drank, we experienced the culture, went to the Shaolin Temple, ended it all walking the Great Wall of China. But through all those amazing experiences, there's a reason why I'll never forget it. And it's because during that time, Hurricane Maria hit in Puerto Rico. I'm Puerto Rican. I have family in Puerto Rico. My grandpa in particular lives there. I remember calling him and hearing the rumbles of the hurricane outside, and it was right before it was gonna hit or not, and I never heard my grandpa afraid. This is an old school Puerto Rican guy. He is a mountain of a man and does not show fear, but in that moment, I saw his frailty. I was on the phone with him, and I didn't know if I was ever gonna talk to him again. You hear about all these natural disasters, but you never think it's gonna happen to you. You never think that it will personally affect you, that it will personally affect your life. You think it will always be a news headline, and you'll take that second throughout your day to wish the best for those people affected, but it's never gonna happen to you. I said goodbye. I said I will keep track of the news because he was gonna lose all power, service, everything. Being that I was in China, I didn't really have service. I had to use my data while traveling through the country. I remember just being on the sleeper train, just constantly refreshing over and over again updates of what was happening. And we lost full contact of my family over there. I finally reached my next destination on the trip, and it was in one of the major cities. It was one of the touristy shopping centers areas, and my father called me, told me that my grandfather's house is destroyed. They don't have any contact with him, but everywhere's destroyed. The island is lost. It's the case where I was surrounded by happy people, families that were all Chinese. They didn't know or care, or maybe they saw the headlines of something happening in Puerto Rico and they probably took their second to wish best for the families. But I was the only one surrounded by people on the opposite side of the world being affected by this, and I never felt utterly, completely alone. I don't think ill of any of those people or any of the people around me. It was more just like a fascinating place to be, to hear such destructive news. I was there. I was feeling the other perspective of the other side of the world, where it's just a mere echo of a headline. It created some depth to me. It created a perception. It made me think. It made me think of all the times I saw terrible headlines from across the world, and I just shrugged and hoped for the best. It didn't affect my day. It didn't affect what was going on. And to be on the other side of that, to be personally affected, to see the world around you keep moving and not caring and not seeing it on the news or not seeing any speck of it where it just doesn't exist. It's almost like you're a ghost and your pain just doesn't exist. In a weird way, it was a social experiment to see how big the world is and how much of an action, as large as it may be to you personally, kind of just fades away of an echo depending how far you are. Made me be more humble, more thoughtful of what the goings-ons around me in the world. I'm saying this now. Why now? That happened like back in September, Eli. Why are you still talking about it? I'm like, well, it's because Puerto Rico's still in a pretty bad state. I had a friend just talk to me this week about how terrible the state Puerto Rico is, and it's been since last September that it happened. The biggest thing is that we so clearly forget about things that matter once they're not in the headlines, which I think is pretty insane. No longer the hot trend of what's wrong with the world. Let's just move on and put it under the rug. But the fact is, there's still problems, there's still destruction, there's still these issues, and it's a part of the United States. The fight isn't over. And this is just a reminder of that we need to keep aware of what's happening. Just because something is trendy for 2 weeks and you build a couple houses and have some smiling faces doesn't mean that the problem's fixed. We need constant reminders to get people aware, to keep the country aware. I mean, it's unfortunate that we're in an era where every week there's a problem that we need to worry about. but definitely keep Puerto Rico on watch, and definitely keep it a part of the conversation, and through social media, through the act of having our voices, having our actions resonate eternally across as far as we wanted to. We have to keep those reminders happening and keep the fight going, because if they're not going to do it, we have to. My grandpa survived. He fixed his home. My family was safe. But it'll never be the same.